What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin Cash. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more. I want to jump into some technical analysis, and then I want to talk about some stuff at the end of this, just talking about why I believe Bitcoin Cash is going to do well beyond just the normal, like, it could go this high, kind of stuff. I don't have anything written down, so hopefully I can remain concise. Anyways, shout out to the Dragon Riders. Shout out to the House of the Dragon. Let's get started. We're sitting at about $388 right now. You guys, this is very resilient. Bitcoin Cash is being very, very resilient. I do want to see real quick on Binance here. Yeah, so on Coinbase, it looks like less volume. On Binance, this actually was a relative growth in volume. See, it looks like less volume there. Still above average in both cases, but that kind of brings a little bit more legitimacy to the move, in my opinion, looking at the Binance chart. We might not get this move down, you guys. We really might not. Maybe I've been looking at this inverse head and shoulders all wrong, counting this whole left side as the left shoulder. Perhaps it's only here that's the left shoulder. It's hard sometimes. I feel like this entire area would make sense for the left shoulder, and we absolutely still could come down. I want to be completely fair and honest and say that targets between even as low as 344, which I'm not personally expecting. I shouldn't say that. It's not what I'm calling for. I wouldn't be surprised if it went down there. It would fit this inverse head and shoulders perfectly. If it is an inverse head and shoulders, right? It still remains to be seen, but it looks pretty perfect in my opinion. I would expect 360 to 355 is still on the table, but we might just be holding this zone. We don't have to go lower. It's normal. It's more common to see basically a exact replica from left to right of the range, right, from a high to a low. And we've got the high, we just don't have the low. But man, Bitcoin, you guys, BTC itself, which does lead the market, and if Bitcoin's doing well, Bitcoin Cash, it's hard pressed to not do well as well. It had a nice day yesterday, a little bit of growth. It consolidated. What's nice about this? Let me show you guys what's nice about this. Right, from a high point to a low point here, you close right below your 618, and generally speaking, when you see this exact thing, especially with a rejection like that, you would expect at least to hit the 0.5, if not at least hit the 382. I mean, not at least, at the most hit the 382 and then move up, right? At least the 0.5 or the 382 and then move up. You didn't even do that, and this is above average volume. It's less volume than this day for sure, but it is above average volume, and it is a smaller bar, so I feel like that is a legitimate move. You closed above the 618, and that's a big deal. That's actually a really big deal. Right now, the bull is very much in the bull's court. The ball is very much in the bull's court, and that could be stricken away if we close below the 618. If we close below about, what is that number there? That's at about $65,285, 65,300. If we close below that today, immediately we get above the 618, and then the next day we just come right back below it, then these targets would be back on the table. But as of now, I must say this is pretty damn bullish. It is pretty freaking bullish, you guys, and it looks like it wants to go up to this 786 to 886 area immediately with these kind of targets in mind. And when I say immediately, I very much do mean immediately. If we don't go up there today, maybe we pull back to the 618, find support, and then move up. That very well could happen as well. That's pretty common given the circumstances we're in. But being that this is our more immediate target, and these are kind of taking a back seat at the moment, they're still areas that should be addressed, relative areas of support and resistance back here, absolutely. But being that these are taking a back seat, I have a hard time thinking that if Bitcoin's going to go up, that Bitcoin Cash would go down. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm not saying it hasn't happened in the past. But this is where I think looking at the BCH BTC chart comes into mind. I very much don't believe that we're going to see a lower price than this. And in fact, I wouldn't assume that we go below this trend line here. We've been holding it fairly well. I wouldn't assume that we do, which at the current moment would put us down, let's see, from a percentage point, because this is the math that we're going to get into. I know I talked about BTC for a second. A lot of you guys came here for Bitcoin Cash, obviously, and you're like, what the hell? Why are we talking about BTC? But BTC is the leader of the market cap in crypto, right? It has the most dominance so far from any crypto, right? So what it does normally is telling of what the rest of the market will do, and Bitcoin Cash is the rest of the market. But for it to go down, I wouldn't expect it to go down 6.6% more than BTC, right? So if Bitcoin Cash itself were to go down while Bitcoin itself went up from its current price, I mean, the minimum expectation would be a 3% move to potentially a 6.6% move. If Bitcoin Cash didn't move at all, that would, as in it stayed neutral. If it just stayed neutral and didn't move at all from here and Bitcoin went to this 886 target, that would bring us right to that line. And that would be, I guess, acceptable in my opinion, but that would be the maximum, let alone if Bitcoin Cash itself actually dropped. And this is where I'm trying to connect the dots, that I don't think we're going to go to this area, because this is all, again, this look is implying if BTC hits its maximum range, this would be the minimum, but Bitcoin Cash itself would have to stay here. It couldn't move down. Again, why I'm kind of thinking about taking these off the table, but addressing them still. It is completely possible that Bitcoin could reverse today. We don't know. We'll look at some shorter term time frames and stuff on a Bitcoin video. If you want to check that out, I'll make this Bitcoin video right after this video. But what I'm trying to say, I know I've got a lot of numbers. I know I'm saying a lot of things. I hope it's easy to follow. Generally speaking, you would expect to go to your 382, maybe your 0.5 area. I wouldn't think that you'd go to your 618 in this kind of case. But if we look at what Bitcoin Cash would do at that rate, that already is a 6% move. So then that would have to imply that Bitcoin itself couldn't move up if Bitcoin Cash were to move. You know what I'm saying? And Bitcoin itself looks like it wants to move up. Again, assuming that we don't get a rejection today that closes below the 618. If we don't, I have a very hard time to see Bitcoin Cash even meeting a $365 price, because that would put BCH BTC below this trend line. And the way it works, for anybody that's curious on how to do the math on BCH BTC, I've gone over this before, but it's rather simple. You can use addition. There's other ways to do it too, where you can like divide it or multiply it, but I feel like addition is something that's easy for everybody to do, right? If Bitcoin Cash gains 2%, but Bitcoin itself gains 4% in a day, this will lose 2% value. It translates exactly like that, right? So if Bitcoin Cash gains 10% a day, Bitcoin only gains 1%, this chart will go up 9%, right? It splits the difference. So if that makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, I don't know how to better explain it, but all that to say, it just wouldn't make sense to go down here anymore. And this absolutely still could be an inverse head and shoulders pattern. It doesn't have to go down here. After all, your closing daily price was right here. And I guess you found support on it on this day, but you were coming up. I don't know if that's an appropriate look. I feel like this is like the start of your shoulder, but whatever. You don't have to go down there. And I feel like oftentimes the right shoulder is the one that stays within the range. It doesn't like set the range, right? That's the left shoulder, and the left shoulder is oftentimes the larger one too, both in range and in time. If we're looking at this for what it is, the left shoulder is 13 days. Generally speaking, the right shoulder is shorter than that. I would say the right shoulder might have started here. We're 5 days in. We're getting to that point where over the next couple days, over the next 3 days, probably early on next week, we would see this thing break out. It could go longer. The longest it could go would be 13 days. Once you get past that, generally speaking, then it kind of invalidates the inverse head and shoulders. I suppose you could have a longer right shoulder, but it's very unorthodox and that's uncommon. Normally the larger one is the left side in my experience and from what I know. And again, normally you break out kind of halfway or more from the length of the left shoulder, which again, that would put us in the next couple days of a time frame, including today, tomorrow, the next day, like up until Tuesday next week, the very beginning of next week, that or I guess that's somewhat toward the halfway point of next week, that we could look to break out of this, right? And we might break out sooner than that. Again, we don't have to. We can break out at any point in time right now. And if this isn't an inverse head and shoulders, even more so, if Bitcoin's moving up, I would expect Bitcoin Cash moves up too. It could just move sideways and be boring while Bitcoin moves up. That is possible. But to me, what's the least likely to happen is that it would go down to any of these expected areas while Bitcoin moves up. So it really does depend on what Bitcoin does over the next couple days. If it continues, which I think it will, unless we get a rejection today, again, a harsh rejection that would take us below $65,000 and $365,285. If we close today below that, that would invalidate this good-looking 618 move. But don't be mistaken. If we pull down to this area and bounce off it, we can go down there as long as we're not closing below there. That would look good. And especially if we pulled down there today and then bounced off it by the end of the day, that would look very convincing as well. That's a very common thing to do. But we don't have to. We could absolutely just go up to the 786. While we're here, I guess, maybe I will just talk about Bitcoin in this chart. The 4 hour looks so good. It looks really good. It really does look good, honestly. The 1 hour looks pretty good as well. Let's see. I mean, dude, it could go a little bit lower again to start off the day, but to end the day, I wouldn't be surprised if today closed green. Perhaps we do go down to like 65,800, but it looks very good, man. You're finding support on your 123 weekly or 1 hour moving average, 4 hour. You're well above it. The daily itself. For those of you that don't know, I like to do this where I compare the 123 RSI to the 123 moving average. There's a little bit of a relationship that I've noticed with them, which is when this is above the 50, especially that bounce right off the 50 like that, and you're below the 123, you generally make your way back above it and you don't go back below it generally, right? You found support here, didn't find it there, whatever, but you found resistance, support here. Like, it is somewhat of a significant line for Bitcoin, especially on the daily time frame. We can look at this on the weekly. I mean, we're not even near it on the weekly. So to me, it just would make sense that we would continue, that this is not a false breakout, but it could be. It is possible. So I think especially this next 24-hour period is important to watch for Bitcoin as well as it is Bitcoin Cash, because I think if Bitcoin gives this up, if it turns back around, then that would put these targets around like 364, I guess 364 to 355, possibly as low as 344 back on the table. And if this video makes sense or doesn't, especially if it doesn't make sense to anybody, the main message of this video, I suppose, would be we're not going to be here for too much longer, okay? And even if I'm wrong and changing my mind right now, assuming that we're not going to go down here anymore, even if I'm wrong in that and we do go down here, we're still not going to be here for that much longer. It's going to be a matter of time, a matter of days, less than a week, before we're back above 400 and genuinely making our way up to prices that are about $200 higher than we are now. If we look at the high here to the low, we're flirting with this 382. Couldn't even get back to the 236. Like, this is actually a bullish look on the fibs, excluding the inverse head and shoulders idea. Just looking at it on the fibs, if you can't even reach that 236 after wrestling with the 382, your next target area would be your 61869, which at a minimum is $507 to $541. I don't know why, but I thought the minimum target was actually 580. And I mean, maybe it is. Maybe we go all the way up to the 786. I don't know why I thought that, but I guess not quite a $200 move, but still something above 500. Again, the idea, the reason why I'm excited about this is that this would imply that we are going to not only be done with the $300 price area, but we are soon to be done with the $400 price area as well and move up above 500 once again. And that's just a nice checkpoint on the road that's going to take us up to new session highs for this cycle, up above $1,000. I really do think we're in the midst of the move that is about to take us. We're at the very beginning. I shouldn't even say the midst. Yes, the midst, but in the very beginning of the move that will take us up above $1,000, which we haven't even been at that price since May of 2021. So well over 3 years from now, or 3 years ago. You know, that's on top of that. What would that mean for the BCH BTC chart? You know, I mean, if we look at BTC itself, I guess I'm comparing Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash in this video a lot, so I'll just title that in the beginning. Some people might be thrown off because I'm going to say I'll just talk about it in my next video, but I'm going to do it here. If the next target, if we look at this for what it is, let's just see if we can get an established growth versus Bitcoin. We're looking at a 20% move, and this doesn't have to happen right now, right? We can move up a little bit. That 786, 886 area, pull back. It can take until like literally just that move alone, the way that I have it drawn, could mean that we're breaking out in September. And I have been saying this over the past couple weeks. I think it will be August. Like since this week here, maybe I guess the last week and a half or so, I've been saying, definitely at least this week, I've been saying that I would expect that we see new all-time highs, not this month, not by the end of this month, but sometime in August, if not sometime in September. That's my thoughts. So going back to the idea that we could move up here, just to get the time frame in people's heads. If we move up earlier than that, I'm happy. That'd probably be good for all of crypto as well. But that's a minimum of a 21% move to potentially a 30, let's just call it a 35% move, because I'm a little bit above the 618 there. 21% to 35%. Yeah, still a little bit above it there. 21% to 25%. What would that be for Bitcoin Cash from its current position? I mean, yeah. So 21% at a minimum for Bitcoin Cash, and this same kind of high to low getting to its extension is 135% to 228%, which translates into this Bitcoin Cash versus BTC chart moving up. Let's just assume 35%. 35%, and let's assume the minimum. Let's just see what that would do. So 35, about 100%. So that'd be about a 100% growth versus BTC, right? Isn't that how it would be? I'm pretty sure that's exactly the math, if the math checks out. Yeah. So a 100% move, for those of you who aren't sure where I'm going with this, would take us to a high above this range that we've been consolidating in since June of last year. For over a year now, we've been consolidating versus Bitcoin in this area. We're with the expected targets, even at the maximum for Bitcoin and the minimum for Bitcoin Cash, that would imply with absolute certainty in the way the math works. The only way it wouldn't work is if Bitcoin exceeds its like maximum expected zone, and Bitcoin Cash didn't even hit its minimum one. The only way this wouldn't work, okay, is that our next move up would do exactly what I've been saying this whole time, which is that we would break out of the zone. We would have our first established higher low and higher high trend versus Bitcoin for Bitcoin Cash ever in existence. And this is a very big deal. For anybody who might fail to see what the big deal is with Bitcoin Cash from fundamental perspectives, let me tell you that this is a humongous deal in technical perspectives, okay? People look for charts, at least people who are like maybe somewhat sophisticated. You don't even have to be sophisticated in trading, but smart in crypto. You look for charts that do better versus Bitcoin in the bull market. If your chart's doing worse than Bitcoin in the bull market, why not just own Bitcoin? It's way less risky. All altcoins, even Bitcoin Cash, maybe not to the Dragon Riders. I mean, I don't feel like it's a risky bet. It's literally the one that I hold the most of for that reason alone. I genuinely mean it when I say I think it could do a 60x from its current price. It could do more. Like that's awesome. For the amount of security and confidence I have in something, a 60x is insane, dude. Bitcoin, people are very sure of Bitcoin, and from its current price, it's not even going to do a 10x. You know what I mean? And people sacrifice the idea of the reward for the mitigation of risk, right? So when you see a coin doing this, looking like it's in an uptrend versus Bitcoin, that also diminishes the risk. And it's like, okay, this is a safe bet. People look for stuff like this. And Bitcoin Cash might not be everybody's favorite crypto, excluding the House of the Dragon out there, of course. But it is something that people are aware of. Even the haters are aware of. And this is a chart that the haters look at specifically because this is all they have. This is all they have right now. Everything else about Bitcoin Cash is better than Bitcoin. It absolutely is. And maybe that's debatable. Maybe there are some things that are better with Bitcoin, but I mean, I'm pretty sure Bitcoin Cash is more decentralized, it's cheaper, it's faster. It does not have stagnation when it comes to development. The community is tight and loyal. It's not a bunch of new people. There are a bunch of new people, but there's a bunch of people who've been loyal to the cause of Bitcoin Cash. Whether it goes up or whether it goes down, they don't care about this. They see it for what it is. It's peer-to-peer currency, and this doesn't have all the charts, right? There's genuine faithful believers in this project, which I think, especially over the test of time, Bitcoin Cash itself has held up well over the test of time. A lot of people want to pretend it hasn't. I'm going off on a whole tangent here, man. I'm like evangelizing Bitcoin Cash, I feel like, but it hasn't gone down this whole time. It just hasn't gone up either. It's really been moving sideways and consolidating. And disbelief around a project tends to bring the most kind of fuel to the fire, in my experience, right? It's the coins that people know about, and Bitcoin Cash is definitely a coin that people know about, but they don't want to see succeed, which fits the bill for Bitcoin Cash. A lot of the market, a lot of Bitcoin people especially, don't want to see this project succeed. And those are the kind of coins that do succeed. Seriously, check yourself. Find a coin that you just hate. You just hate it. Maybe you hate the community members. Maybe you just like don't like it, and you can't put your finger on it, but you don't want to see it succeed. I would bet you all my Bitcoin Cashes that coin does well. It probably does better than anything you're holding. That, in my experience, that's like exactly. I didn't want to see Shiba Inu succeed, and it did better than Dogecoin because I'm a Dogecoin guy. I liked Dogecoin's it used to be my favorite meme coin. Now Jesus Coin's my favorite meme coin, but Dogecoin has a special place in my heart. I plan on getting a tattoo of Dogecoin, man. But like genuinely, I do. It has a very special place in my heart. Made me a lot of money in the last cycle, but because of that, because I'm so affiliated with Dogecoin, I don't make that known too much. I'm not affiliated with the project itself, but just in my heart I am, with my feelings. I didn't want to see Shiba do well, and it did better than Dogecoin for that. I wanted to see it fail. I wanted it because it wanted to be the Dogecoin killer. And I'm using that own example. I'm getting off on a whole different tangent here, but back to the fact, there are a lot of people, big accounts, much bigger accounts than me, who want to see this thing fail. And the fact of the matter is, it's not failing. It's thriving. This is one of the most utilized cryptos in the space on a merchant. I don't need to tell you guys that. I'm going over things you already know, but back to the main point here, back to the TA, right, is that this is a big deal. For the people who don't see it from a fundamental value, you best believe that a coin that is, shout out to the BitcoinCash podcast, you best believe that a coin that has maintained its spot in like the top 30, top 50, its entire existence, is going to catch the attention of people who are looking, who are hunting for coins that are doing better than Bitcoin this cycle. It's already proven itself that it is. It's already doing better than Bitcoin this cycle, but it will be undeniable when we break these highs. It will be undeniable when we break this high, because even at its minimum expectation, if Bitcoin went to its maximum expectation, you would still have a break of this high, and that would suggest a new trend. Here's your trend. Here's your whole trend in existence. We've already broken out of that trend. The beginning of a new trend is about to come into play over the next weeks and months and days even, right? Like that, it all starts here, man. It really all starts here. When we break above this area at like $408 to $410, when we break above that, the next target area is the 61869 zone. And when we break above this, it's essentially a green light for this to happen, right? I'm very much expecting it. I'm already giving it the green light. I very much believe this is the area, the next area that we're going to, absolutely, and we could go beyond that. There are plenty of reasons, and I'll go over that in a second, why we could see this area, and that I might be being too conservative with this area, but I like to be conservative. I'd rather be conservative and have my expectations exceeded. I'd rather have some guy hit me up in the comments and be like, oh, it went up higher than you expected. Are you okay? Like that is the, I need to get a shirt for the people that were there that day, man. I need to make a shirt that says, are you okay? Like, and it just goes up higher than you expected. Cause yes, if this coin performs better than I expected it to, and it's my biggest holding, I'll be okay with that. I think I can speak for all of us, and that's what I always say. We would be okay with that. But it's good to be conservative and not have your feelings hurt by setting the bar too high. But I will make an argument in a second why that might not be too high for the next move. When that happens, I'm not so certain. But again, it all starts here. It all starts when we get above this 382, and then when we get above the 618. I personally don't expect that we'll break through the 618 on the first attempt. I would expect that we find resistance here, as we found resistance a few times, more than a few times, and even before this consolidation phase, we found resistance here. Going back in time, I'm sure we found resistance more than that. We probably pull back to our 0.5, which, hey, this 123 moving average, we might find support around there, or we could go down to our 382, pull back to our breakout point. That's a very common thing to do, and then move up from there. It all depends, I suppose, on Bitcoin as well, and Bitcoin Cash. It just depends on this look. If we do, by some freaking miraculous miracle, break above the 618, these targets come a lot earlier than I was anticipating. They absolutely do. But at the end of the day, the last gatekeeper is going to be this 886, which is at about 640, 648, 47, something like that, around 650. When we break above that, it's all but happened. It's all done but the celebrating, right? Like at that point, when you break above the 886, it's undeniable. It's I shouldn't say that, right? But it's highly unlikely, like with a degree of like 90% or more likelihood that we would go above this. We have to break above it though. We can't just move above it. We have to close a day, preferably 2 days above it in a row, to put this on the like near guaranteed kind of idea. I already feel like it is guaranteed. I'm not trying to summon any jinxes or curses by saying that, but it all just makes sense, man. It all literally, you compare Bitcoin, you compare it to Bitcoin itself on BitcoinCash, BTC, like it all makes sense. And beyond that, the weekly RSI as well looks very, very, very bullish. Higher lows in correspondence with each other, higher lows here in correspondence with each other. It does look like somewhat of an ascending triangle in itself. The case that I was saying to make for higher prices, I've done this earlier this week, but for anybody that might want a refresher, it's always fun to talk about it, right? It's debatable. You could do this high to this low here, and at which case you would get, and that is the high of this consolidation range and the low, so that could make sense. You get up to the 200 area, okay? Respected the 100 there, respected the 1618 and the 1886. Like, there's definitely respect there. But the way that I normally do it would be the move that is immediately like corresponding to this, right? Like, it wasn't, debatably this whole move is what sent us up here, but I think this more immediate move, this is the spring that wound us up to send us up here. And I just wonder, we hit the 2272, closed right at it, found support on the 1272. We show respect on both. You do it how you want, but I do feel like there's more respect on this one. We even found support back here, so I feel like it is a more significant one. But at a minimum, not at a minimum, at the place that we hit was the 2272. We actually broke a little bit above the 2272 from this one. Okay, so from now the next high to this low, right? This was like the spring that sprung us. We went above the 200 yet again. So again, this is all under the idea that I might be being too conservative, saying that the 1272 to the 1618 is where we're going to go to. Perhaps we go higher, and then it would make sense for various reasons beyond just measuring the fibs. I'll keep going into it, right? Why we could see this target area, because that's what we've done this whole bull cycle so far, right? Which isn't saying much. We've only got 2 iterations, 2 pumps to go off of, but still, I mean, those aren't bad gains. I think I can speak for all of us whenever I say, I mean, going from 390 up to $911 at a minimum, I'm not going to be upset with that, but I don't think that's in store. I think even 1200 might be too pessimistic of an outlook, and we'll go over why that is too. But again, these minimum targets would be 1600 to 2200, 2250, right? That would be what implies this next move would be. And it all, again, that kind of corresponds and correlates with the idea that we're going to break out of this consolidation phase. We're going to see higher highs and higher lows, the first bull trend that Bitcoin Cash has absolutely established versus Bitcoin ever in its existence. That's a very big deal, and I think that could promote reactions that are a big deal for this thing going higher. Another thing that would be a big deal, we've got 2 more things that I think are a very big deal. From a high point from this entirety of its existence, right? We have been in this consolidation phase below this descending trend line. A lot of Bitcoin Cash haters are like, aha, it had its top already. It's following suit. What did it do every time before? There we go. Bitcoin Cash's bull cycle's over. They're counting on that. They are counting on that. I want you to find 1 month that looked like this, right? I guess right here it did, but you dropped a lot more first, okay? You dropped a lot more. You could chalk that up to first cycle volatility, but 86% versus about 60%. It doesn't seem like it's that far away, but it really is. Let me just show you where 86% would take us. That would take us all the way back down to our cycle lows, right? It compounds, moving down compounds. So it actually is a very big deal. If you look at it for what it is, 60% to 86%, well, that's only a 15% difference, right? Or 16% difference. But if you look at the size on the chart, it's actually like twice as big of a move, right? You can see that with your naked eye. It might even be larger than that. This is what people would be expecting, right? We've got this very bullish month, in my opinion, and all the other bullish things culminating with that. The thing that I'm alluding to is that with this next move up, we would absolutely break out of this trend line. There would be no debate at that point that Bitcoin Cash is doing something different than it's done its entire existence. We've been consolidating for a very long time, and when you break a trend line like this that has been respected each cycle, including the current one, with this very dominant uptrend, I would expect that we see a glorious move. These have been glorious moves, but I think it's only going to get bigger and badder and better, right? Like it's going to be exactly, or hopefully exactly what I'm talking about, 1600 to 2300. Really, that could be what we're destined for on this move. It wouldn't be crazy. And I mean, obviously, well beyond that as the cycle continues. That's not where I think the cycle highs will be, but that's just where this next move will be. There's one last thing that I want to go over, and I went over it recently. I don't talk about it all the time, but the MA ribbon on the monthly. You can see a bunch of different things are happening with Bitcoin Cash that we haven't seen in its entirety of existence, but we're seeing it this cycle. this ribbon is a bunch of different exponential moving averages, and I think it's the 30, perhaps. Perhaps it's the 30. I want to put a white line on it. No, it's not the 30. I'm sorry. It is the 35. Put a white line on it so it stands out. You can see last cycle we got above the ribbon, which is nice, it's exciting, but we didn't maintain prices above it, right? We got above it, and that was the end of the cycle, right? We're above it now. I don't think it's the end of the cycle, right? We hit this trend line, that was the end of the cycle. We hit the trend line, I don't think it's the end of the cycle, guys. I think we're doing things differently this cycle. I've gone over, this whole video illustrates that. This yellow line, the 20 EMA, when it gets above the whole ribbon itself, especially the 55, whenever it flips above, it's no longer on the bottom, but it's on top. That's a very bullish signal in itself. If you look at Bitcoin, actually, we can just do it. We can just do it here. BTC USD. It has maintained a bullish trend in its ribbon, its entirety of existence, right? Anytime you get below it, that's like the bear cycle bottom area. Great time to buy, but you don't stay below it for long, right? The majority of its existence stays up, and that's a very bullish look. It's a big deal. It's a very tremendous deal, the idea of flipping this yellow line on top of the red line, a bullish cross, as it were, but for the monthly. That's a very big deal. By the way, our weekly looks phenomenal. It's maintained. It's doing great. The daily is about to flip, but we've been rather neutral, so it might not be as significant, but daily's about to flip. That could be, again, leading to the idea that we move up about $150 as well. But back to the monthly. We only crossed last cycle above the next line up, above the 25 EMA. The 20, the yellow, we only closed above the 25. We reached for the next one, but we couldn't quite get there, let alone this white line, which is the 35. As of now, as of right now, and the month's not even green, and we're expected to move up more soon, we are above the 35 EMA. That is 2 EMAs, is 2 levels higher on this ribbon than we've ever been in its existence, alluding to the idea, giving us the hope, the dream, the aspirations that we will in fact get a bullish cross. And this, by the way, if we moved above the ribbon like this, pulled back down to around like the bottom of it, and had a bullish reaction like that, it absolutely, I mean, first off, it absolutely would give us a cross. And second off, that in itself would just look very bullish. That it would look absurdly bullish, right? And again, just more things that we've never done in this thing's existence. I just very much think it's a big deal. And I think things like this are things that sophisticated, not even, you don't have to be sophisticated. You just press a button, you click on it, boom. Like a monkey could do it, you know what I mean? But people who look for very significant indicators, which I think these are, they see that, and that gives them the green light. That gives them, they're like, okay, something's going on here. And I've talked a lot about the technicals. I want to go over a comment that I received, a very inquisitive, curious comment. They weren't talking smack about Bitcoin Cash. I feel like some people might get salty in the butthole for it, but he was just saying, and no hate, I'm not going to throw names out there because that's not what this part's about, but he was saying that he only hears like me and Ethan talk about Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin on that note. And he just doesn't see the point of it, you know, and I feel like this video itself should help with the point, I think, a little bit, but even then, who's going to see it, right? What's the audience? It doesn't seem like there's many people talking about it. If to you, my friend, and I don't know how long you've been in crypto. I feel like you said you've been in crypto for 6 months maybe, or maybe I'm thinking of a different comment. Maybe you've been in it for longer. I don't know. But for anybody who thinks that nobody talks about Bitcoin Cash or Litecoin, you're probably in your own echo chamber. There are plenty of channels that talk about Bitcoin Cash. There's channels that are bigger than me that talk about Bitcoin Cash. I mean, obviously Ethan's channel is bigger than mine, but even bigger than Ethan's channel that talk about Bitcoin Cash. Roger Ver is a billionaire, and he is like an evangelist. I'm pretty sure he's a billionaire. I would assume he's a billionaire. If not, maybe he got in like some legal trouble, financial trouble for that whole tax thing, whatever. He got out of jail. I don't know. It might have been minor. I think actually I looked into it. It was a minor amount of money in comparison to what I think he has. I feel like if he's not a billionaire, man, the dude is definitely very, very wealthy, and he publicly advocates for Bitcoin Cash. He got a lot of merchants on board, to my knowledge. The Bitcoin Cash podcast talks about it. There's tons, and I'm drawing blanks on it. I mean, senior scientist, crypto theory, cryptocurrency theory, the guy that he's like good morning or good day future billionaires, that he has a lot more followers than I do. I think he has more followers than Ethan does too, or maybe it's somewhere in between. And then the Reddits, there's Reddits, there's all kinds of forums where Bitcoin Cash is discussed as well. There's a lot of people in the developer community that pay attention to what Bitcoin Cash is doing because it is productive and it is doing things that are kind of setting milestones for other cryptos to follow suit, things that might be outside of your realm of information or like the areas that you frequent. There are plenty of people that talk about Bitcoin Cash besides just me and Ethan. I promise you there are. And besides the point, whatever the amount of people are talking about Bitcoin Cash now in a positive way that believe in it, I would assume that is going to change for the better in a dramatic way as the cycle continues to go, as it goes. And this is something, I don't have a reference, I don't have a link, you're just gonna have to take my word for it, and I hate that because it's not that well credited. But I have watched an interview where Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, was talking about Bitcoin Cash very briefly, but he did talk about Bitcoin Cash. I would bet, and he announced that that BlackRock is mining, or not BlackRock, I'm sorry, that Marathon, which BlackRock owns a lot of Marathon, right? They might be the majority shareholder, I don't know, but they definitely have a vested interest in Marathon. Marathon announced that they've been mining Caspa and Bitcoin, and that they announced that after a year of mining Caspa. They could be mining Bitcoin Cash right now, but they're not going to announce it, right? They're not going to put that news out until we're at the top, which if you look at the Caspa chart, it's probably either at its top or near its top, right? I think it has one more run in it. If not, it might be at its top, but that's a whole different video. He mentioned it in an interview. He's aware of it. And that might not seem like a big deal, but you've got a guy who's in charge of the largest asset holding like business in the world, who's also like they have a pretty heavy hand in the largest crypto miner in the world as well that's publicly traded. Might be the largest one, period. There's not, I was watching a video, I was watching the Bitcoin Cash podcast the other day. There's not like a huge, crazy amount of hashing power going into Bitcoin Cash compared to Bitcoin or compared to like some other bigger coins. So maybe they don't have a heavy hand mining Bitcoin Cash, but they could be mining it. And I don't know. Maybe they don't mine it right now. Maybe they will mine it later. The point being is that they at least know about it. It is on their radar. And a lot of these traditional finance people that are looking for projects that have stood the test of time, that have been around for multiple cycles and they haven't fizzled out, and they start breaking out and they start doing bullish things versus Bitcoin, things that they've never done before, people like that look for stuff like this, right? That they're always looking for that next thing. And if they're not looking for it, they've got people who are looking for it, you know what I mean? Which is basically the same thing. But I'm essentially done with this video, right? I'm just, the main thing that I was trying to talk about with the end there is that Bitcoin Cash has a lot more going for it than meets the eye. And I very much believe that, right? It is my largest hold. I might be a bit biased, okay? But, and I will accept that. If I'm biased and I'm wrong, that sucks for me. And it sucks for all the Dragon Riders out there, because I know you guys feel very much the same way. But beyond all the opinions, all the fundamental possibilities that could come along with Bitcoin Cash, the technicals which are printed, which are facts right now, suggest a lot of good things are about to come. And all these ideas with it breaking out, with it forming an uptrend versus Bitcoin itself, it hasn't happened yet. That is still an opinion. It's an opinion that I would say is backed by statistical probabilities, but it's an opinion nonetheless. When it becomes a fact, that's going to be a very big deal. And we are super close. Like you guys, we are like months away, weeks, months. We are in a very small time frame away from when this is going to happen. Bitcoin Cash will not be below $400 forever, and it's going to end soon. We're all going to be like, why didn't I sell my house? Why? I don't need this car. Why didn't I sell my car? Why didn't I sell my cats? I would never sell my cats. Depends on how much. No, I'm just kidding. I love you boys. They're looking at me. They're looking at me like, what are you talking about? Okay. On the weird note, I will end it, my friends. I hope you had as much fun in this video as I did. I don't know. I always love talking about the long term with Bitcoin Cash. We didn't even go over the long term. We were just talking about actually the more immediate stuff. But in the long term, from a high to low, especially if we go to these areas that I'm talking about, which are between 1,200 to 2,300, right? We might even go higher than that on this next move up, which could happen by the end of this year. Maybe it happens at the beginning of next year. But the higher up we go, the closer we are to these targets, which are the personal targets that I have by the end of this cycle. And if everything goes the way that I'm thinking it goes, if it gains traction based on what's about to happen, and there's this disbelief in Bitcoin Cash goes away, and all this perfect fairy tale story that I've painted, that we all probably paint in our head about this, comes true over the next like 6 months to a year, these targets are absolutely doable. These targets are absolutely doable. Bitcoin, BTC itself, went from similar price areas up to these target areas in one cycle, right? Here it is. It's so impossible. That would never happen. Bitcoin Cash can't do that. It can't happen. Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash are the same thing, but Bitcoin itself, Bitcoin Cash is the better of the two coins, right? Bitcoin was at a low of $110 on Coinbase. Let's go to the actual chart so anybody can't argue that. From the low point here to a high point, it went all the way up to 19,800. Low point of 162 to 19,800. It consolidated down in this area for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, let's just say 9 months. It broke out on its 10th month, so 9 months. Bitcoin Cash consolidated in this area for, I don't even want to count because I know it's a lot larger. Technically, this month it consolidated for 13 months, okay? 9 months, 13 months, it's consolidated longer. It's seeing more volume. It actually, I did go through and compare the volume levels even on Binance. It actually is seeing more volume here relative to this area than Bitcoin did whenever it was in the same cycle. It already is more bullish looking from a, I'm going to try to, how do I get rid of all these? Can I do that? Can I? Yeah, there we go. It looks more bullish right here already than this cycle did, right? Bitcoin itself has moved from these areas up to around 20K. Okay, I'm thinking the whole reason why I think Bitcoin Cash is going to go above 20K is because I think a lot of people are going to see Bitcoin Cash for what it is, which is it's like a time traveled Bitcoin back in the past, okay, where we have a second chance at buying below $500, below $1,000, below $400 right now. And people are going to be like, it'll probably top off around 20K like Bitcoin did. Like that will probably become a narrative, an idea, a more accepted idea as time goes on, as we're later in the cycle. But I think they'll be wrong. I think it'll go up a little bit more. It'll go up a little bit more than 20K, and then that'll promote the idea, oh, maybe it is going to 50K, 60K. That's where Bitcoin's next target is. Maybe there's targets up there. Maybe that's where it's going. And we go just a little bit above it, and that's where it tops off. I don't know. And the reason why is, again, this fib level is pretty significant. If we take the relative high to the relative low, that wasn't the relative high. The 1886 is also at the 1414. And Bitcoin Cash does have a somewhat of a flirtation with its 1886, I believe, from this low to this high. That's its 2886, so still an 886 level nonetheless. From this high to this low, that's a 2272. I swear it had, maybe I'm getting it confused with another coin. I thought it had a flirtation. All right, 1886 right there, topped off. Low to high here. Nope. I swear there's more. I swear there is more. Maybe I need to look at it on the weekly, but I'm not going to go over that. Maybe I should, because just one example wouldn't necessarily be enough. But I think it is enough because you have the 1618. I'm sorry, the 1414 of a larger fib and the 1886 of a lesser fib lining up together right here from a high to low, topping off at your 1886. You found significance on it several times, actually. You even found support on it later on in the cycle. From this high to low, that's probably deeper than the one. No, I think we already did that. Maybe not. 1886 right there. I want to just be sure. I mean, you closed at your 1886. You wicked to your 2272, but you closed at your 1886, which I think does show significance there. If you want to say I'm cherry picking, okay, you might be able to make an argument there. Found resistance at this 1886, found support on it here, support throughout. Could be a coincidence. I don't know. Seems like a lot of coincidences potentially. And then here, no respect on the 1886. It doesn't mean that you have to go there. I'm just saying it's an area that we have interacted with several times in this thing's history, and that would be at 22,000. The 1618 from this high to low is all the way at 23,000. So just more confluence with the idea that we could go up there. And again, I just personally have this idea, this thought. If I'm writing a book about the way that this bull cycle is going to go, I'm seeing people be like, oh, it's going to do what Bitcoin did. It's going to do exactly what Bitcoin did because it's essentially the exact same coin, but it's better, right? I think the fact that really it's going to go up to prices above 20K resides at the fact that it is better, that people might expect it to hit the same areas, so then it'll go a little bit higher, tease people, make them think it's going to go higher, and then that's when it'll dump. Classic crypto shenanigans. And beyond all that, it has consolidated for so much longer. This phase was already longer than Bitcoin consolidated here for, but it didn't consolidate. It consolidated in this area for a short amount of time. Bitcoin Cash was exposed to these prices and prices around like 300, right, which Bitcoin at its high here was at 300 as well, right? 300 to 160 in this area. Bitcoin Cash was exposed to lower prices and similar prices and all in between for years, for multiple bear cycles and technically multiple bull cycles. Whenever it breaks out of this consolidation, I think that it will see a more magnificent rally. And I'm just going on and on and on, you guys. I really geeked out on this one. So hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more content. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.